The phone buzzed for the 5th time in less than 10 minutes. I took a deep breath and looked at the screen. 3 more messages from my mom and 2 from my dad. All with the same desperate tone as the past few weeks. "We need to talk urgently. This situation is unbearable. Please, son, help us." Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get access to more stories like this. I put the phone aside and looked around my apartment. It's small, simple, but completely mine. 6 months of living on my own, and I still felt that strange mix of guilt and relief every time I ignored their messages. The bank had sent the final notice about my parents' house financing. In 2 weeks, the repossession process would start. My aunt called yesterday saying my mom was about to have a nervous breakdown. Apparently, my dad hadn't been able to sleep for days. And Julia, my older sister, kept posting photos from the beach while everyone was in a panic. The phone buzzed again. A message from my mom: "How can you do this to your family after everything we've done for you?" I grew up hearing that Julia was special, too sensitive to handle the hard knocks of life. I was only 8 when I started washing dishes and cleaning the house. By 12, I was already delivering newspapers before school so I could buy my own school supplies. "Marcos is strong, he can handle things on his own," my mom would proudly tell visitors, while Julia, 4 years older than me, was still treated like a little kid. As a teenager, I studied and worked part-time at a snack bar. Julia dropped out of 3 different colleges because it wasn't really her calling. When I turned 21, my parents called me in for a serious talk. "Son, your dad is going to cut back on his work hours. His back problems are getting worse," my mom explained. "And we need your help with some bills," my dad added. Julia, then 25, was living at home without a job, searching for her purpose. Meanwhile, I split my first full salary between my own expenses and my parents' bills. It started with small contributions. 1 month I paid the electricity bill, the next, the supermarket. Soon I was paying all the household bills. When my dad's car broke down, I used my savings to fix it. When Julia needed a new notebook for her projects, my parents asked me for the money. At 25, I got a promotion. That same week, my dad showed me the overdue notices from the bank for their financing. "The bank is threatening to take the house, son. We have nowhere to go." I took over the house financing. Every month, I transferred the money to my parents' account so they could make the payment. Meanwhile, Julia started her new venture selling handmade products. Of course, my parents invested in the raw materials. "It's just until her business gets stable," my mom justified. For 3 years, I lived in a tiny rented room just to save money while supporting my family. I watched my friends travel, invest, and build their lives, while I could barely save up enough for an emergency. Everything blew up on a Sunday afternoon. I got home for our family lunch and found Julia showing off an incredibly expensive designer bag. "Early birthday gift from the parents," she announced with a smile. Later that day, my dad called me into his office. I thought it was work-related, but it wasn't. "We need an extra bit this month. Your mom wants to remodel the kitchen." "Remodel? You guys can barely pay the mortgage. We're paying just fine with the money you send." "And where is the money for the remodel coming from?" My dad looked away. "We thought you could increase your contribution. It's for the family's comfort." I stood up, shocked. Family includes me too, doesn't it? While Julia is getting expensive gifts, I can't even save enough for my own apartment. My mom walked into the office at that moment. "Don't talk like that about your sister's present. She needs this push. You already have your job, your own life. She's 32. When is she going to take responsibility?" My mom's face twisted with anger. "How dare you question the way we raised your sister? After everything we did for you. You're ungrateful. Get out and never come back." I left. And for the first time, I didn't go back. The first few days were the hardest. Guilt was consuming me. 32 missed calls in the first 48 hours. Then, as if they had agreed on it, only silence. I rented a small apartment. For the first time in years, my salary was mine alone. I managed to build an emergency fund in just 2 months. I started investing. I bought a new TV without feeling guilty. I met new people. I went out more. I started running. I slept better. The constant knot in my stomach began to loosen. I realized I was breathing differently. Lighter. Without the weight of carrying 4 people on my back. Weeks turned into months. I started therapy. My psychologist helped me understand the toxic patterns of my family, how I was conditioned since childhood to be the responsible one, the strong one, the provider. You didn't abandon your family, she told me. You chose not to be abandoned by them anymore. That phrase stuck with me during those 6 months of silence. Until the silence ended with that deluge of desperate messages about the financing. The messages intensified after that first day. My mom alternated between pleading and accusing, sometimes in the same message. We need you, the house is about to be taken, followed by, how can you leave your family homeless after everything we've done for you? My dad took a different approach. Short, direct messages, the bank set a final deadline. We need 15,000 Brazilian reals to clear things up. Call me. I ignored them all for 3 days until my phone rang on a Saturday afternoon. It was my Aunt Helena, my dad's sister. Marcos, I know it's not really my place to interfere, but I'm worried. Your parents are desperate. Aunt, they kicked me out of the house. They literally told me to leave and never come back. Your mom said that in the heat of the moment. You know her temper. It's been 6 months, Aunt. 6 months without a single message asking if I was okay. The silence on the other end of the line told me she understood. Did they mention the financing? Yes, they said you always helped out and now you've just stopped. I felt my face flush. I stopped because they kicked me out. And I even sent them money for 2 more months after I left. Look, I'm not judging. I just think you should talk to them, understand the situation. Dialogue doesn't cost a thing. After hanging up, I stared at the wall. My therapist had warned me about that phase, the external blame, when family would try to bring in third parties to pressure me. But it was Aunt Helena, the only one who always noticed the imbalances in our family. That night, I got the first message from Julia in all those months. Bro, we need to talk. Mom isn't well and Dad only talks about the bank. Please. It was strange, Julia never used to call me the bro. That was new. On Sunday, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and froze. My dad was standing outside holding a folder. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Dad. Son. His eyes were red, with deep dark circles. He looked like he had aged years in just a few months. Can I come in? We sat in the small living room. He looked around, noticing the simplicity of the apartment. Nice place. It's what I can afford while I get my finances in order. He nodded, embarrassed. He opened the folder and took out documents from the bank. We have 2 weeks to clear the situation. If we don't pay, they'll start the repossession process. I looked over the papers. Notices, warnings, legal threats. But something caught my attention, the dates. This first notice is from 9 months ago. I was still sending money back then. My dad looked away. There were some setbacks. What kind of setbacks justify not paying the financing with the money I was sending specifically for that? Your mom needed surgery. What surgery? Her knee. Private surgery. The plan didn't cover it. It was the first time I was hearing about this. And the money I sent in the 2 months after I left? Silence. Dad, what happened to that money? Julia needed to invest in her business. The family meeting that followed was my mom's idea. I agreed to go to their place the following Thursday after work. When I arrived, I found not only my parents and Julia, but also Aunt Helena, 2 cousins, and my grandmother. What is this? An intervention? I asked when I saw everyone in the living room. We wanted everyone together to solve this family problem, my mom replied, her face swollen from all the crying. Julia came over to hug me as if the last 6 months never happened. We're so happy you're here, Marcos. My grandmother looked at me with obvious disappointment. Your grandfather is turning in his grave watching the family like this. Aunt Helena seemed uncomfortable. I didn't know it would be such a big meeting. I asked to speak only with my parents and Julia, but my mom insisted. Everyone's here because they care. Family is family. During the next 2 hours, I witnessed a parade of manipulative tactics so obvious that, if they weren't so painful, they'd almost be funny. My mom started sobbing, detailing how she could hardly sleep, how her blood pressure was high, and how all of this was because of me. The doctor said I could have a stroke any moment with this stress. My dad, more controlled, appealed to a sense of duty. Son, a man doesn't abandon his family when they need him the most. Your grandfather worked until his last day to support all of us. Julia alternated between throwing subtle digs, some people are lucky enough to land good jobs early, and trying to awaken nostalgia. Remember when we were little and promised always to take care of each other? My grandmother was the most direct. In my day, an ungrateful kid wouldn't inherit a thing. Your mom sacrificed her youth raising you. The cousin stayed quiet, clearly embarrassed by being there. Aunt Helena intervened occasionally, trying to steer the conversation back to the topic of the financing. When I finally got to speak, I asked directly, how much do you need to clear the situation? 25,000 reais, my dad replied quickly. But the documents you showed me said 15,000. The bank updated the amount, he answered, not meeting my eyes. Can I see the updated document? It's in the email, I just need to print it, he deflected. That's when Julia changed her strategy. Marcos, I know I haven't been the best sister. But I'm changing. I'm going to sell my car to help. What car? You don't even drive. She hesitated. The one mom and dad bought last year so I could start learning. I looked at my parents, stunned. You bought a car while you weren't even paying the house financing? It was a unique opportunity, my mom justified. The son of Dona Celia was moving abroad. That's when I realized it wasn't just about a financial emergency. It was a systematic pattern of financial irresponsibility, guaranteed by the certainty that I'd always be there to fix everything. You have an obligation to help, my grandmother snapped when I expressed that conclusion. The Bible says, honor your father and your mother. The Bible also talks about being responsible with your resources, I replied, surprising even myself with how calm I sounded. When I announced I had to leave, the real emotional storm started. My mom broke down crying, my dad accused me of killing your mother with grief, and Julia started listing everything my parents had done for me. They paid for your school, your clothes, your food. Julia, that's called basic parental duty, not a favor. As I headed for the door, my mom threw out the phrase she knew would hurt me, if your brother were alive, he would never do this to us. I stopped. My younger brother, who died at 6, had always been a forbidden subject in our family. It was the first time his memory was used against me. That was low, Mom. Really low. The next day, I got an unexpected call from Mr. Oliveira, the manager at the bank that financed my parents' house. He had met me when I took over the payments. Marcos, I hope I'm not crossing any boundaries, but since your name has been on the payments for years, I think you should know a few details. What details? The financing payment started getting irregular about 14 months ago. First a few days late, then weeks. In the last 11 months, we only received 3 partial payments. My stomach sank. But I transferred the money every month. I only completely stopped for months ago. I can't see what happened to the money after the transfer, of course. But we have records of renegotiation attempts where your parents cited difficulties due to medical and educational expenses. Educational? Yes, they mentioned costs with an international postgraduate course. Julia had never finished a college degree, let alone started a postgraduate course. But I remembered her talking about a specialization course in the arts in Europe that ended up not happening. Also, I thought, Mr. Oliveira, how much would really be needed to clear the situation? With interest and fines accumulated, approximately 31,000 Brazilian reals. Almost double what my dad had mentioned initially. And significantly more than the updated amount he mentioned later. Is there anything else I should know? He hesitated. That's beyond my responsibilities, but since you've been consistent all these years. Your parents took out a loan using the house as collateral 7 months ago for 45,000 Brazilian reals. I hung up feeling physically sick. A significant loan using the house I was paying for as collateral, without even consulting me. Determined to uncover the full truth, I called Aunt Helena. This time, I got straight to the point. Aunt, do you know what happened to that 45,000 loan my parents took out using the house as collateral? Her initial silence was revealing. How did you find out about that? The bank told me. What happened to that money? And why did they keep asking me for money for the financing when they'd just received that amount? Marcos, it's not my place to judge your choices or theirs, but... Aunt, please. I need to know the truth. She sighed deep. Part of it went to a trip. Your parents, Julia, and her boyfriend at the time went to a resort in Cancun for 2 weeks. Another part went for her car, and the rest, well, your dad invested in Julia's new venture. Which was an online store for imported accessories. It didn't work out. The products got held up at customs because of paperwork issues. The next day, I received photos. They were images of that trip, sent by a distant cousin who saw my short rant on social media. My parents and Julia smiling in tropical beaches, fancy dinners, yacht rides. The dates matched exactly with the period when they claimed they had no money to pay the financing. In one of the photos, my mom was showing off a gold bracelet with a personalized pendant. I zoomed in and froze when I recognized the design. It was identical to a sketch I had found among my deceased younger brother's things from years ago. A child's drawing turned into an expensive piece of jewelry, while they used his memory to manipulate me. It was as if a curtain had been completely lifted. Years of manipulation, lies, and exploitation exposed all at once. It wasn't just about money, it was about a fundamentally corrupted family dynamic. 2 days after the revelations, I made a decision. I wasn't going to answer any more messages or calls. If they wanted a response from me, it would be in person. I told them I'd come to their place that night at 7. I arrived on time. Through the living room window, I could see the whole family gathered again, my parents, Julia, Aunt Helena, and surprisingly, my grandmother. I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell holding an envelope. My mom opened the door, her eyes puffy but hopeful. Son, it's so good that you came. She hugged me like the last 6 months hadn't happened. Everyone's waiting. The living room was arranged differently. A central table with documents spread out, clearly prepared to convince me. My dad immediately got up, extending his hand. Marcos, thanks for coming. We knew you wouldn't abandon us. I'm not here for what you're thinking, I said, still standing and refusing the invitation to sit down. I'm here because you deserve to hear what I have to say, face to face. My mom's smile disappeared. Julia shifted uncomfortably on the sofa. I talked to Mr. Oliveira from the bank yesterday. I noticed my dad's face go pale. He told me about that 45,000 real loan you took out using the house as collateral. The house I was paying for. Son, we can explain, my dad began. I also spoke with Aunt Helena. I looked at her, and she lowered her eyes. And I got photos of that Cancun trip you took with that money. While I was living in a rented room, working overtime to send money for the financing. It was only 10 days, my mom argued, her voice rising. After everything we went through raising you and your sister, didn't we deserve a moment of relief? With borrowed money used as collateral for a house I was paying for? Without telling me anything? While you begged for more money? We were going to pay everything once Julia's business got stable, my dad explained, as if that made perfect sense. Julia finally spoke up. How can you do this to your own parents? Selfish. Selfish? I laughed in disbelief. Julia, you're 32 and you've never paid a single bill in that house. All of your ventures were financed by them, with my money. Who's the selfish one here? My businesses are still going to take off. I just need time. Great. While they take off, get a job like any responsible adult and help with the bills. What happened to you? My dad asked, looking genuinely confused. You were always so helpful, so responsible. I still am. I'm being responsible with myself for the first time in my life. I looked at each of them. You've always seen me as a means to an end, never as an end in itself. A resource to be exploited, not a son to be loved. Aunt Helena, silent until then, nodded discreetly. She understood. Look around, I continued. This house has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and it's only the 3 of you living here. Sell it, buy something smaller, clear the debts, and start over. It's what any responsible adult would do. And if we refuse to sell, my mom challenged. Then get ready to deal with the bank. I'm not getting involved anymore. I walked to the door and paused before leaving. One last thing, don't come to me anymore for financial help. I won't answer. In the following days, my phone practically exploded with messages and calls. Every family member tried a different approach. My dad appealed to reason, my mom to guilt, Julia to childhood memories, my grandmother to religion. I ignored them all. A week after the confrontation, I got a call from Aunt Helena. They're finally considering selling the house, she said. Your dad found a 2-bedroom apartment that would fit their budget. And Julia? She's furious. She says she's not going to live in a cubicle. But she doesn't have much choice unless she figures out how to support herself. Did she get a job? Surprisingly, yes. Part-time at a department store. She's not happy, but it's a start. I went on with my life. I renewed my lease for another year. I started studying for a professional certification that could lead to a promotion. I developed new hobbies, made friends in my building, and even started dating someone. A month after the confrontation, I ran into my mom waiting at the door of my building when I got home from work. She didn't seem like the same person, dressed in simple clothes, without her usual flawless makeup. We need to talk, she said. If it's about money. It's not. Her voice was different. Less dramatic, more real. It's about us. Reluctantly, I invited her in. I offered her a coffee, which she accepted without her usual remarks about the quality of the cups or the simplicity of the place. We sold the house, she began. We signed the contract yesterday. The buyer is paying in cash, which will let us clear the loan and the financing, with a little left over for the down payment on a smaller apartment. I'm glad you made that decision. It wasn't easy. Your dad resisted until the last minute. Julia had a breakdown when she found out she'd have to share a room with us temporarily until we got the new apartment. And you? How are you handling it? She sighed deeply. I'm learning. Your confrontation was like a wake-up call. I never imagined we'd get to this point. I stayed silent, waiting. I now see how unfair we were to you. How we overloaded you. She hesitated. And how we favored Julia in ways that weren't healthy for either of you. It was the first time I heard my mom acknowledge any imbalance in how she treated us. Why are you telling me this now? Because I want my son back. Her eyes filled with genuine tears, different from the manipulative ones I was used to. Not your money or your financial help. You. I didn't answer right away. Years of toxic dynamics aren't fixed with one conversation. It's going to take time, Mom. A lot has been broken between us. I understand. And I deserve your distrust. She pulled something from her purse, a small package. I wanted to give this back to you. I opened the package and found a gold pendant, the same one I saw in the Cancun photo, the drawing of my brother. You shouldn't have used his memory like that, she admitted. It was cruel and manipulative. He deserves to be remembered with love, not used as a weapon. That gesture, more than the words or tears, showed me that maybe there was hope for real change. In the following months, I kept my contact with my parents limited. Fortnightly meetings in neutral places, a cafe, a park. We set clear boundaries. We didn't talk about money, I wouldn't accept gifts on random occasions, and I wouldn't tolerate comments about my lifestyle. My dad adjusted slower than my mom. For him, moving to a smaller apartment was a blow to his pride. But little by little, I noticed subtle changes. He started talking about financial responsibility. He even bought books on the topic. Julia was the most resistant. Our interactions remained tense, marked by mutual resentment. She kept her part-time job, but she did not give up her spiel that everyone had to support her dreams. Maybe one day she'll understand, or maybe not. It's no longer up to me. A year after I left my parents' house, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, no longer a rental, but one I financed for myself, for me. Smaller than their house, but perfectly suited to my needs and means. I looked at the message I had just received from my mom, proud of you for buying your apartment. You earned it with your own hard work. See you Sunday for lunch? They were not a perfect family. Maybe never will be. But for the first time, we were relating as independent adults, not as a provider and dependents. That cruel sentence, "You're ungrateful. Get out and never come back." That hurt me so much ended up being my liberation. Sometimes you need to leave to find your true value. Sometimes you need to stay away so others can see who you really are. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do for your family is to set firm and loving boundaries, even when it means saying no to people who always expected to hear yes. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get access to more stories like this. Looking out at the city skyline, I smiled. I'm no longer the family ATM. I'm Marcos. A son, a brother, but above all, a whole person with the right to live my own life.